Imagine pretending to sleep, only to overhear something that shatters your trust in the person your son is about to marry. You thought you knew them. You thought everything was perfect. But what happens when the truth starts to unravel in the most unexpected way? In the quiet of the night, Catherine, a mother protecting her only son, chose to test her son's fiancée by pretending to sleep. What she overheard changed everything. Was Ella really in love with Lucas, or was she just after his money? What dark secrets was she hiding, and how far was she willing to go to secure her place in their lives? Could Catherine expose the truth before her son's future was ruined? Or was it already too late? The evening had begun like any other, with soft music playing in the background and the scent of freshly cooked food lingering in the air. Catherine sat in the comfortable living room of the family home, the quiet hum of conversation filling the space. Her son, Lucas, sat across from her, his dark hair slightly tousled from a long day at work. At 27, Lucas was everything a mother could want in a son. Smart, hardworking, and deeply caring. He had made it in the world of technology, climbing the corporate ladder quickly. A steady job, a promising future, there was no doubt Lucas had his life together. Then there was Ella. She was everything Lucas had described to her and more. Beautiful, poised, with a smile that could light up any room. She was everything Catherine expected in a fiancée, except for the nagging feeling in the back of her mind that she couldn't shake. From the moment they'd met, something had seemed off. It wasn't Ella's beauty or her charm, those were real, but the way she carried herself, as if always aware of the stakes in the room. Catherine couldn't help but wonder if Ella was genuinely in love with her son or if she was simply playing a part in a well-rehearsed script. "Ella, dear, you've chosen such a beautiful wedding dress," Catherine commented, her eyes briefly glancing at Lucas, who smiled warmly at his fiancée. Ella's eyes glistened with pride. "Thank you, Mrs. Rivers. I've always dreamed of a wedding like this. Everything has to be perfect, you know?" Perfect. That word again. It seemed to come up in nearly every conversation. Ella had a vision of perfection, a life built on the foundation of appearances and expectations. Catherine had been married once before, to a man who had loved the idea of their life together but had grown cold when the reality didn't match the dream. It had ended badly. So when she saw that same glint of ambition in Ella's eyes, something inside her warned that history might be repeating itself. Lucas took Ella's hand, squeezing it gently. "Everything will be perfect, I promise," he said, his voice filled with love. But Catherine noticed a slight hesitation in his tone, a flicker of doubt that he quickly masked. Catherine excused herself from the table, citing a headache, and made her way to the couch by the window. As she settled in, she pretended to close her eyes, but her mind was wide awake. She would listen. She had to listen. Tonight, she would find out what was really going on with this woman who had captured her son's heart. Lucas and Ella continued talking, their voices drifting towards her. Catherine relaxed, allowing the shadows to settle over her, but keeping her ears keenly alert. She could hear the soft rustling of pages turning and the clink of glasses being set down on the coffee table. The room felt intimate, the sounds of their conversation like whispers in the dark. At first the talk was light, filled with wedding details. "What about the flowers?" Ella asked. "I think we should go with white roses, don't you think?" "I like white roses," Lucas replied. "But maybe we can add a touch of lavender just for something different." Catherine closed her eyes further, pretending to drift into sleep, but inside she was watching, listening, her instinct screaming that something wasn't right. And then the conversation took a turn. It was subtle at first, almost like a shift in the air, but Catherine could feel it. Lucas's voice dropped, quieter now, and there was a tension that wasn't there before. "I'm really worried about this wedding, Mom," Lucas admitted, his words coming out slowly. "I don't know how we're going to afford it all. The venue, the catering, it's all adding up." Catherine's eyes snapped open, a wave of shock sweeping over her. What was he talking about? Lucas had always been financially comfortable. His job at the tech company, his rising career, it never crossed her mind that he was struggling. How could he be? Ella's response was soft, almost comforting. "It's okay, darling. We'll figure it out," she said, her voice smooth. "You've always had me to rely on, and I'm not going anywhere. We'll make it work." Catherine felt a chill run down her spine. There was something off about the way Ella said that, something colder than Catherine would have expected. "I'm not going anywhere." The words were almost too rehearsed, too calculated. She had a momentary flashback to her own marriage. Catherine had been married to Robert, a charming man with a sharp mind and a knack for making people feel like they were the most important thing in the room. But as the years went on, she discovered the truth. Robert wasn't interested in her. He wasn't even interested in their family. He was only interested in his ambitions. He had used her, manipulated her, until she was nothing more than a pawn in his game. Could it be that Ella had the same plans for Lucas? Her thoughts were interrupted when she heard Lucas speak again, his voice laced with anxiety. "I've been taking out loans to cover everything," he confessed. "I didn't want you to know, but I've been struggling. My job's not as secure as I thought, and I'm falling behind on payments. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up." Catherine's heart raced. How had she not known about this? She thought back to the lavish dinners they had shared, the expensive gifts they had bought. Lucas had always appeared to have everything under control. But now, it seemed there was so much more going on behind the scenes. Ella's voice was calm, too calm. "Don't worry, Lucas," she said almost soothingly. "We'll figure it out. You don't have to do everything on your own. I'll always be here for you." Her words were gentle, but Catherine couldn't ignore the way she said it. It wasn't just reassurance, it was a command. A subtle, quiet control over him. But then the real shock came. Catherine had heard enough, but what happened next was a dagger to her heart. "I just need him to believe I'm the one for him," Ella said, almost as an afterthought. "Once I have that wedding ring, everything else will fall into place. I'll take care of him. Everything will be fine." The words echoed in Catherine's mind, each one carrying a weight far heavier than she could have anticipated. Once I have that wedding ring. Ella wasn't in love with Lucas. No, she was using him. Catherine's body froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew in that moment that something was very, very wrong. This woman who had captivated her son wasn't just after a wedding. She was after control. She was after his future. And Catherine wasn't about to let her have it. Catherine lay on the couch, her mind racing as the weight of what she had overheard settled into her chest. She had never felt so conflicted in her life. On one hand, she knew that Lucas would be devastated if he ever found out what Ella was really after. But on the other hand, Catherine was a mother, and her duty to protect her son came before anything else. She had to expose Ella's true nature no matter the cost. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but what she had heard was undeniable. Ella wasn't the woman she had appeared to be. She was calculating, manipulating, and far more interested in Lucas's future than in their relationship. And yet, as Catherine lay there, still pretending to sleep, she couldn't shake the thought that there was more to Ella than just her obsession with wealth and status. The next morning, after a sleepless night, Catherine made her way to the kitchen. The sun had barely risen, casting a soft golden light through the windows, but Catherine was already wide awake, her thoughts consumed with the events of the previous night. Lucas was sitting at the kitchen table, his laptop open in front of him. He looked tired, but as always, he wore a smile that made Catherine's heart swell. He had inherited his father's warmth, a trait she had always been proud of. But she could sense something was off. He hadn't mentioned his financial worries to her, not once. It was like he was hiding it all, carrying the weight alone. "Morning, Mom," Lucas said, his voice cheerful despite the tiredness in his eyes. "Ella and I were talking about the wedding. She's got some new ideas for the seating arrangements." He didn't notice the way Catherine stiffened at the mention of Ella's name. She didn't want to bring it up, but she knew she had to. If there was any chance of saving Lucas from making a life-altering mistake, she had to act now. "Lucas," Catherine began, her voice soft but firm, "I need to talk to you about something. Something important." Lucas looked up from his laptop, his expression shifting from casual to concerned. "What's wrong, Mom?" Catherine took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. She had spent years protecting him, raising him to be strong and independent, but now, as an adult, it was time for him to hear the truth. She had no choice but to speak, even if it would break his heart. "I overheard something last night," she said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside her. "I overheard you and Ella talking, and Lucas. I don't think she's the person you think she is." Lucas's face instantly clouded with confusion. "What do you mean, Mom?" Catherine's heart ached as she watched his brow furrow, the disbelief clear on his face. "She isn't in love with you, Lucas. She's not here for you. She's using you." The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. Lucas shook his head, clearly struggling to process what his mother had just said. "What are you talking about? Ella loves me. We're getting married, Mom. I know what you think, Catherine said, her voice breaking slightly. But love isn't about the wedding or the money or the fancy venue. It's about trust, about being there for each other through thick and thin. She took a step closer, her gaze unwavering. Ella doesn't see you as someone to love. She sees you as a means to an end, Lucas. I heard her say it, she wants the wedding ring, and once she has that, she'll have everything she's been after. Lucas recoiled, his face reddening as the shock began to settle in. No, Mom. You're wrong. She's been nothing but good to me. She's been supportive through everything, even when things have been tough. You don't know her like I do. Catherine felt a pang of guilt, but she pushed it aside. She couldn't stop now. I've known her for months, Lucas. I've seen how she manipulates every conversation. She's too perfect, too polished, and it's all a facade. She's playing a game and you're the prize. I couldn't stand by and watch this happen to you. Lucas's eyes softened, but the anger was still there, just beneath the surface. Mom, you don't get it. She's the one I want. I don't care about the money or the status. I love her. Catherine's heart shattered at his words. He didn't see it. He was blinded by his feelings, by the idea of a perfect life with the woman he thought was the one. But Catherine knew better. She had lived through a marriage that started with passion but ended in deceit. She couldn't bear to see Lucas make the same mistake. I'm not trying to hurt you, Lucas. I just want you to see the truth before it's too late. I don't want you to get trapped in a relationship that will destroy you. Her voice wavered with emotion, but she refused to back down. Lucas stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. I'm not some naive kid, Mom. I can make my own decisions. I know you can, Catherine replied softly, her eyes pleading. But sometimes love isn't enough. You need to trust the people who truly care about you. There was silence between them, thick with tension. Lucas looked at his mother for a long moment, as though he were seeing her for the first time. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Before he could say anything else, the sound of the front door opening caught their attention. Ella's voice rang through the house, cheerful and light. Morning, everyone. Hope I'm not interrupting anything. Catherine's chest tightened as she turned to face her son, whose gaze flickered between her and the door where Ella stood. He wasn't ready to hear the truth, not yet. But Catherine couldn't stop now. The truth was already out there, and it was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down. The tension in the kitchen was palpable as Ella's voice echoed through the house. Catherine turned slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew the confrontation was inevitable, but she didn't expect it to happen so soon. Ella stood in the doorway, her radiant smile in full bloom, oblivious to the storm that had just passed between Catherine and Lucas. She wore an air of confidence, the kind that only someone who was certain of their place in the world could have. It wasn't arrogance, not exactly, but there was something unmistakable about the way she carried herself. Catherine's eyes hardened, but she forced a smile, trying to mask the growing dread within her. Lucas, on the other hand, seemed to exhale a breath of relief upon seeing Ella, his posture relaxing as if the conversation with his mother had already been forgotten. Morning, sweetheart, Ella said, her voice as sweet as honey. She walked into the room, setting down her purse on the counter and looking at Lucas with a kind of adoration that made Catherine's stomach churn. I thought we could talk about the wedding again today, maybe finalize some details? Lucas smiled at her, his previous frustration with his mother disappearing in her presence. Yeah, that sounds great. I've got a few things to take care of, but I'll be with you in a minute. Ella leaned in to kiss him on the cheek, her lips lingering just a moment longer than necessary. Catherine watched, her fingers gripping the edge of the counter as she forced herself to stay calm. There it was again, the subtle control in the way Ella had touched him, as if marking her territory. Lucas's gaze lingered on Ella as she moved about the kitchen, pulling out a coffee cup and filling it with water. She was effortlessly beautiful, the kind of woman whose presence could fill any room, and Catherine knew that Lucas had fallen under her spell. But Catherine could see through it. She had seen that same manipulation before, felt it in the cool, calculated way Ella had spoken the night before. And yet, Lucas was still blind to it. Mom, can I talk to you for a second? Lucas's voice cut through her thoughts and she turned back to him. His expression was softer now, but there was still a flicker of confusion in his eyes. He hadn't fully processed what she had said earlier, but Catherine knew that the seeds of doubt had been planted. He just needed time to let them grow. Catherine glanced at Ella, who was busy with her coffee, then nodded. Of course. They stepped into the hallway a few feet away from the kitchen, where Lucas turned to face her. His expression was serious now, the warmth he had shown Ella still lingering in his eyes, but there was a growing tension in his brow. Mom, I've been thinking about what you said earlier and I don't get it. Catherine took a deep breath, her heart pounding. This was the moment. The truth was sitting heavy in her chest, but she had to be careful, one wrong word and she could lose him. I know it's hard to believe, she said gently, her voice soft but unwavering. I don't want to hurt you, Lucas, but you have to see it for yourself. Ella isn't who she seems. I heard what she said last night and it wasn't about love. It was about control. Lucas shook his head. Mom, no. You don't understand. Ella and I. No, you don't understand, Lucas. Catherine's voice was firmer now. She couldn't tiptoe around it anymore. She doesn't love you. She's using you. She's been using you from the start. The words hit like a slap and Lucas recoiled. His face went pale, his mouth opening and closing as though he couldn't find the words. You don't know that, Mom. You're just trying to protect me, but you don't know her the way I do. I know her better than you think, Catherine replied, her voice low. I've been married before, remember? I've seen the signs. I've seen how she manipulates everything to suit her needs. And I overheard her, Lucas. She's not after your heart. She's after your future. Lucas's jaw clenched. His face flushed with anger, then quickly turned to confusion. What do you mean, Mom? She's been with me through everything. She's the one who stood by me when I was struggling. She supported me when things were tough. Supported you? Catherine said bitterly, shaking her head. She's been pushing you to get more loans, Lucas. She's been pushing you to spend money you don't have, to put yourself deeper into debt. She doesn't care about your struggles. She cares about the life you can provide for her. And you're too blinded by love to see it. Lucas looked away, the guilt starting to creep in. His shoulders slumped slightly as if the weight of her words was finally starting to take hold. I don't believe this, Mom. I just don't. You have to believe me, Catherine said softly, her heart aching for him. I'm your mother. I'm the one who has always been there for you through everything. I want what's best for you. But Ella is not who she pretends to be. There was silence for a moment as Lucas processed the weight of her words. His face hardened, his lips pressed into a tight line. Finally he spoke, his voice shaky but resolute. I don't know if I can trust you on this, Mom. Catherine's heart sank, but she knew that she couldn't force him to see the truth. He had to come to it on his own. I just want you to think about it, Lucas. Don't let her blind you to what's really happening. Just as the words left her mouth, Ella appeared at the doorway, her eyes sparkling as she stepped into the hallway. Everything okay, you two? Her voice was sweet, but Catherine could hear the subtle edge of control in the way she spoke. Lucas turned toward her, his face softening instantly. Yeah, we're good. Just needed to talk for a second. He flashed a smile at Catherine, but it didn't reach his eyes. Catherine's gaze met Ella's for a split second, and she felt a chill run through her. The woman was standing there, smiling, as if she hadn't just been the subject of a conversation that could ruin her entire facade. But Catherine wasn't going to back down. I hope so, Catherine replied coolly, her eyes never leaving Ella's. But sometimes it's not just about talking. Sometimes it's about seeing the truth. Ella's smile never faltered, but there was something darker lurking behind her eyes. The game was on. And Catherine was ready to win. The air in the house felt thick with unspoken tension, like a storm was about to break. Catherine could sense that Lucas was on the edge of something, his mind teetering between the belief he had in Ella and the seeds of doubt that had been planted. Ella, however, seemed as calm as ever, her polished exterior untouched by the confrontation. She had this unnerving way of appearing completely in control, as though she had mastered every room she entered. Catherine had seen it before years ago with her ex-husband. The ability to manipulate with a smile. But Catherine wouldn't be fooled. Not again. The days following the conversation were filled with quiet unease. Catherine watched as Lucas tried to push the doubt from his mind, yet his moments of silence told her everything she needed to know. He was starting to question everything. Ella had started to control the narrative again, drawing Lucas into her web. Catherine knew she couldn't wait any longer. The truth had to come out no matter the cost. It was a Saturday afternoon when Catherine finally decided to act. She had been preparing for this moment, gathering the pieces of information she needed to expose Ella. Her instincts told her that the time for subtlety was over. She had to confront Ella head-on and force her to reveal her true intentions. Lucas had stepped out for a quick errand, leaving Catherine alone with Ella. The house was quiet, and the sunlight streamed through the windows, casting everything in a soft, golden hue. Ella was sitting on the couch, flipping through a bridal magazine with an air of detached concentration. "Ella," Catherine said, her voice steady but sharp. Ella glanced up, her smile widening. "Oh, Catherine. I didn't hear you come in. How's your day going?" "Cut the act," Catherine replied coldly, her eyes locking onto Ella's. "We need to talk." Ella's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before it was quickly replaced with a polite expression. "Of course, what's on your mind?" "You know what's on my mind," Catherine said, her voice low but firm. "I've been watching you and I know what you're doing." Ella's fingers tightened around the magazine, but she said nothing, her eyes narrowing slightly. Catherine could feel the power dynamic shift, and she knew Ella was now aware that Catherine wasn't going to back down. "I don't know what you mean," Ella said smoothly, her voice like velvet. But there was an edge to it now, a tension that hadn't been there before. "You've been manipulating Lucas," Catherine said, her voice cutting through the tension. "Using him. You're not in love with him. You're after his money, his future. You've been planning this from the start." Ella's expression hardened, her lips pressing into a thin line. "You don't know what you're talking about," she said, standing up slowly. "I love Lucas. You think I would spend all this time with him if I didn't? You think I'd be planning a future with him if I didn't care?" "Love?" Catherine scoffed, taking a step closer. "Is that what you call it? Love isn't controlling every aspect of someone's life. Love isn't using someone's weaknesses against them. I overheard you, Ella. I heard you say that once you had the wedding ring, everything would fall into place for you. You've been using him as a stepping stone this whole time." Ella's eyes flashed with anger. "You think I'm using him? You're delusional. I'm here because I want to be. I care about him more than you'll ever understand." Catherine wasn't backing down. "I've seen this before. I've been in your shoes. You think Lucas is your ticket to something better, but you're wrong. You're not just after his wealth, are you? There's something darker, isn't there?" Ella's face froze, and for the first time, Catherine saw something other than control and polish in her eyes. There was a flicker of fear, and that was all it took. Catherine knew she was getting to the heart of it now. "I know everything, Ella," Catherine continued. "I know you've been hiding things. Things you think no one knows. You can't keep up the charade forever. You're not the woman you pretend to be, and Lucas deserves to know the truth." Ella took a step forward, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You think you can expose me? Do you think Lucas will believe you over me? You're nothing but a jealous mother who can't stand seeing her son happy." Catherine's heart pounded in her chest, but she stood tall. "Lucas deserves more than a woman like you. He deserves someone who loves him for who he is, not for what he can give. I'll make sure he sees the truth, even if I have to tear down everything you've built." For a long moment, Ella didn't move. Her gaze was fixed on Catherine, and for the first time, Catherine saw the mask slip. There was something cold and calculating in her eyes, something that sent a chill through Catherine's bones. Ella wasn't just playing a game. She was dangerous. "I've done everything for him," Ella said, her voice low and venomous. "Everything. I made him believe in me. I made him believe I was his perfect match. And you think you can take that away from me? You don't deserve him," Catherine said, her voice unwavering. "You never did." The silence between them stretched, and Catherine felt a sudden shift in the air. Ella stepped back, her hands clenched at her sides. For a moment there was no sound, no movement. Then, in a voice that was barely a whisper, Ella spoke. "I'll make sure you regret this, Catherine." The threat hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. Catherine's heart skipped a beat, but she didn't flinch. She had come this far, and she wasn't about to back down now. She knew Lucas would never forgive her if she didn't stop Ella. Just then, Lucas's voice called out from the hallway, breaking the tension. "Mom? Ella? Everything okay in here?" Both women turned at once, the calm returning to Ella's face in an instant as she flashed a smile. But Catherine knew the truth. She knew that Ella would stop at nothing to get what she wanted. "I'm fine, Lucas," Catherine said, her voice steady but laced with concern. "But I think you should hear what Ella has to say. The truth about who she really is."